All right, welcome to another expert interview. I start them all exactly the same. I'm always excited for our guests. This is no exception. I am very confident this is going to be a value-packed episode, so buckle up and get ready. As always, I let my guests introduce themselves. So with no further ado, tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So I am Gab Bosche, co-founder and CEO of The Purpose Company. So we are obsessed with helping leaders and executives find and use their purpose. So we are the premier experts in purpose development for leaders and teams. We're the co-founders of the Purpose Factor Assessment, the first ever scalable purpose discovery system used by the US military, Google, and other Fortune 50 companies.
That's perfect. I'm glad you stopped there. Let's go down that path. I want to talk about the assessment since you teed it up. What the heck is it? How deep do you want to go? I'll let you kind of drive.
Sure. So we developed the Purpose Factor Assessment really after years of working with organizations, helping them engage and understand the next generation. So about a decade ago, I was kind of the millennial expert who was a millennial, working with major organizations, Department of Interior, Naval Sea Command, Comerica Bank, Comcast, helping them understand who's the next generation and what the heck is wrong with them. So I'd be brought into these organizations as a consultant, trainer, and expert, and I kept talking about the importance of having purpose at work. And it didn't take a long time for leaders of other generations come up to me afterwards and say, hey, I want that too. And I'd say, what? They're like, the purpose thing that you're talking about. I'm not a millennial. I want purpose too. And so after looking around and kind of shaking everything high and low, we looked for, is there a process that you can teach people at scale how to find their purpose? And there wasn't. So it took us about a decade to be able to develop the system that we now call the Purpose Factor Assessment. So we have the book, The Purpose Factor. We did a TEDx talk on it, and it's really taken off, especially in a post-pandemic world where I think companies are really changing their perspective on what their role is as a company. It's no longer transactional, like you come in, you work for me, I give you a job. It's transformational. What can we do together and how can we get connected? So we have trained purpose discovery to about 100,000 people at this point, and we've had about 20,000 people take the Purpose Factor Assessment as it is now. So it's not just for companies. We also work with a lot of individuals. Most people going throughout their day aren't really thinking, what's my purpose? They're usually saying things like, what's next for me? And so we believe that purpose is the best decision-making mechanism that you can use, have, and apply. And so having clarity on what your purpose is and how to use it in a really practical way is what we hope to do with the Purpose Factor Assessment. So it's very simple. It takes about 20 minutes for people to take. And at the end of it, you get a 49-page report that's about you. And it's like a book on you. So it'd be the book on Devin and everything that most fulfills you, most frustrates you, what your blind spots are, how you best lead and how you're best led. It gives you your core values, your beliefs, and every single assessment is one out of 625 different results. So it's completely unique to you. And like every assessment, it's a mirror. It's going to tell you more about who you are and give confirmation and affirmation about who you are. That's a good assessment. A great assessment tells you what to do with it. So we give you the toolbox of how to actually make adjustments in your life and career. So that way you can create more fulfillment on demand. So that way you not only know that what you're doing is in alignment with your purpose, but you're actually empowered to help other people live out their purpose, whether they're living with you, working next to you, or the people that you serve as clients and vendors.
That's amazing. Let's go back to something you said. You talked about what's next for me. How else does a lack of purpose show up in your life or in a workplace? What are some other signs?
Yeah, I think a big thing that people are asking when, again, the symptom is different than the diagnosis. And so we may know that it's a lack of purpose clarity, but the symptoms can be everything from kind of living the same year over and over again, that Groundhog Day syndrome, where there's not a lot of forward momentum, but there's a lot of circular action. So if you feel like I'm really busy, but I'm not productive, that's oftentimes a lack of purpose, because we define purpose as the best of what you have to help other people. And so if you're looking at what is the best of what you have, there should be forward improvement and momentum attached to it. Another big question that will kind of start to help people ask in purpose discovery is, what am I actually passionate about? As kids, a lot of times people will tell you, go find your passion. But if you actually look at the dictionary definition of passion, it says it is a barely controllable emotion. which I don't know about you, but I don't think that that's my highest and best decision-making tool, is using my barely controllable emotions to decide what's next for me. And so what we want to lean into more is something that we call pull passion, which is the size and type of problems that you are prone to solve and the things that you enjoy solving and are really drawn to. So if you're kind of jumping from passion project to passion project, that's also to another symptom that you're probably not as aligned with your purpose as you think you are. The third thing I would say is if someone's in a season and they're not having that clarity of why they're doing what they're doing. Now, a lot of times people will equate why with purpose, but we actually think who is a better question to ask when it comes to trying to find your purpose. First, who are you? And secondarily, who is it that you're called to help? And so if you are in between jobs, in between relationships, in between opportunities, and you're feeling a lack of identity, you're really, because your identity was in that relationship, in that job, in that company that maybe you sold, or there was a merger and acquisition situation where you're now no longer who you busy with the things that once you once thought identified as who you are. Oftentimes that is a symptom of truly not having clarity on your core purpose.
Love it. Let's talk about, you talked about 1 out of 625. So that's obviously different than other assessments where it's like, here's the 5 versions, lean in. You also talked about being able to execute and take action after your assessment. So the kind of follow-up question you hit a little bit, but how is this different than all the other assessments people have taken, and what are they going to feel and get as a different result?
Yeah, the approach that we take to developing an assessment was that we wanted to create something complementary, not competitive. So that means this isn't something that's necessarily going to negate other assessments. I think there are incredible assessments out there, and we've got amazing relationships with many of them. That everything has its time and its place. The purpose factor is the only purpose discovery assessment of its kind that's gonna give you that clarity. And like we said, it's 1 out of 625. And so our hope is, whether you're a team that onboards new employees and you wanna make sure that as soon as they show up on day one, they know what their purpose is and can connect it to what they do every day, that you're leaning into the purpose factor assessment. If you're trying to decide what direction you should take as an entrepreneur, you're using your purpose factor assessment to determine, is this aligned with my purpose or not? Maybe you want to change the conversation around your executive table and that conference table where you're talking about ascending new employees, or how do we figure out hard things, or maybe just leadership development, that you lean into the purpose factor. Or maybe you've got a kid trying to figure out what's next. It's designed for 10th grade and up. And so you're bringing the purpose factor into that conversation as well. So one of our goals at the Purpose Company is to change the conversation around the dining room table and the conference table, to move away from just talking about logistics, people, and things, but to lean into what most fulfills us and how can we support each other as each of us are really striving to experience a life that's more fulfilling than yesterday.
You just hit this too, so we'll kind of walk down that path. Are there common age milestones, experience milestones, or other factors where people should lean back in because maybe their purpose has changed or something shifted in their world?
Yeah, so there's really 3 key times that people want to find their purpose. So the first time is usually a situational change. So maybe it's a changing of relationship or a changing of status. They're no longer employed, or maybe their kids have left the house and they're empty nesters. So when you kind of look around and you're no longer busy with the activities that you once kept you pretty full, you're typically going to ask questions around what's my purpose and what's next. The second time is when you're kind of uncomfortable being comfortable. That means that you're kind of at this point in your life where you're like, yes, things are fine, but. And so those tend to be the type A, us weirdos out there that for whatever reason, we're always trying to strive, going after the next mountain, challenging ourselves to try the next thing. So those are usually the folks who, I'm sure many people in your community who, for whatever reason, we're just that achiever type that just kind of gets addicted to what's next. So when you kind of wake up one day and say, I've got a great job, I've got a great life, I've got a great everything, but what else could I do? That question around purpose is really kind of the alignment piece. And then the third time in our life is usually when we've got a new challenge in front of us. So maybe we've taken over a new company, we've ascended into a new kind of relationship, we just became a parent, we just retired, and we're wanting to find out what is our identity in this new season. We've just been given a new title, a new role, a new opportunity. How do we make sure that new role isn't going to end up like last time where it just is kind of more of the same? How do we make sure there is that key alignment Because purpose is one of those things that once you know it, you can't unknow it. You can't unknow what your purpose is. It's like you now see color for the first time or can hear at a different frequency. Everything kind of comes through that lens of purpose discovery. And so once you have that clarity, our hope is for people who take the assessment is that they really create alignment around decision making, because at the end of the day, personal development is all about making better decisions. And so our hope is, and what we hope our contribution is in the leadership space, is to give people a tool set to be able to make stronger decisions.
Love it. D has dropped in the chat. That makes sense. A life-changing event will push you to ask, what do I do next? So I hear that from you as well.
Yeah.
You know, that seems like a good moment. Talk to me about the follow through. So obviously you do a ton of this, speaking and education. You're a very value focused leader. They take the assessment, they get the outcomes. How else can they engage with you and with your organization? What are some next steps and things that are available?
Yeah, our goal is really to empower and to raise up a movement of leaders who are leading on purpose. And so we do that through our Purpose Factor licensed facilitator and certified coach programs. So we could have built our company in a way that, if you want to find your purpose, hire Brian and Gab or hire the Purpose Company, and we could have done very well. And you still have an option to do that. But we feel very strongly that this message of purpose is so important that we want to decentralize our impact. We want you to be the localized expert on purpose in your company, in your community, in your church, on your soccer team. And so how do we make sure that you are seen as the expert on purpose? Because you're going to have insight and wisdom to speak into the people that you're called to help, just like I am, and just like you are, Devin, and you are Dee. So each of us have a sphere of influence that we're called to, and we feel very strongly to empower people inside of that sphere of influence. So we have a certified coaching program that we essentially train you on how to become an expert on purpose, how to help people find their purpose, how to walk people through their assessment, how, if you want to, you can speak and coach and consult or internally become almost like this chief purpose officer inside of your company, where you're now known as the go-to purpose who helps people find their purpose inside of the organization. So that's a big push that we're so proud of. We've got one of the fastest growing certifications out there where we're empowering people in nearly every industry you can think of to be seen as leaders who are on the front line and the go-to leaders on purpose.
Again, you kind of hinted at it, so let's go there. Who's a perfect fit or the best fit to go through the certification? We have a lot of coaches in our world.
Yeah.
What are some key demographics?
Yeah, we have a lot of people who find us who are already coaches and consultants who say, that's what I was looking for. I talk about purpose. I have 3 pillars or 5 steps, or purpose is a part of what it is that I'm already speaking or training or mentoring people around. I can't believe there's a tool that I can give someone that they can find their purpose and I can walk them through it. So those are a lot of folks who come into our space. And again, we really believe that we're complementary, not competitive. We want to fit into people's offers, processes, and kind of natural cultures. So that way it feels really native. So that's a lot of what we do with existing coaches and consultants who are in the HR space, executive recruiters, leadership coaches, mindset coaches, trainers, speakers. We also too have a lot of companies who put people through our certification process. So that way, whether they're in HR, learning development, COOs even, who go through this process. We even have an emergency room doctor who just recently got certified, who said, I want to be able to help other doctors protect themselves from burnout by finding their purpose. So we really believe that purpose is a relevant message for anyone. If you feel kind of that call of helping other people step into their calling and meet their highest potential, we want to be able to be standing there with the baton of saying, here's what we know about purpose discovery. We've done it for over 100,000 people. How do we help you accelerate other people's results so that way you can get what I think is the biggest return on investment you ever could have, is someone saying, thank you for helping me find my purpose. When you help someone find their purpose, they don't forget it. You live rent-free in their mind forever. And so a lot of companies, we have a lot of financial advisors who get certified so that way they can help their clients find their purpose as they're making key financial decisions. We have a ton of real estate agents who get certified so that way they can be your realtor on purpose. So it's a great question, and I could probably fill up most of our time with stories of people in different industries wanting to differentiate themselves by being certified on purpose.
Talk to me about personal purpose and business purpose. Is there a difference? How does it represent itself in both worlds? Let's go down that path for a minute.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. So there is an important difference between personal purpose and a company's purpose. So a company or a business purpose tends to be decided at the executive level. So it could be an assortment of their mission, vision, and values. It can be the problem that they feel called to solve. The dictionary definition of purpose is a reason for being. And so many times companies kind of lean into that. The definition that we use and really lead with is the best of what you have to help others. So every company, whether you're Starbucks, Mercedes-Benz, SpaceX, they all have a reason for being, and they have the best of what they have to help other people. And so if you as a company want to come together and have conversations around what is the best of what we have to help other people, you have to define who are the other people? Is it your board of advisors? Is it your clients, your vendors, your team members? So determining your who as a company is something that collectively you kind of come together and say, who is it that we're primarily going to consider our stakeholders? And what are we determining is our best? Is it our innovation? Is it our R&D? Is it the proprietary way in which we do our work? On the individual level, identifying what is your purpose factor is really important because we can make that connection. That's actually one of my favorite conversations I love to have with companies. We'll do it like executive retreats or kind of executive conferences even, where we'll come in and say, here's the mission or here's the purpose of the organization as defined by the leadership. What is your personal purpose factor and how can you live out your purpose while helping this organization live out theirs? And when you make that connection, I mean, good luck trying to get people to quit. I mean, at that point, they're like, I'm dyed in the wool. I'm all in. I'm ride or die, because it's really important. But it is super, super important to identify that a company's purpose is powerful, but it's not enough to move individuals. And I've seen that because I've worked with some of the most missional organizations in the world. I've worked with churches and I've worked with the US military and I've worked with Goodwill and I've worked with the CIA. I've worked with very missional organizations that just saying we have a big mission, come join us, isn't enough. People want to know, how can I find myself in that big M mission? Where do I show up? And how can I make sure that I have an opportunity to show up as myself and be seen and be known for who I am? When you have to have both and. Just the company purpose isn't enough to move the needle, and just individual purpose isn't enough to lead an organization.
Let's talk about the younger generation. You hinted on that's the foundation of where you started. And I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth about the next batch of employees, but from a generational standpoint, how do you see the struggle or the challenge on going through this process? Do you see a difference with different generations? Let's talk about that.
I definitely see that the younger generation is more expectant of finding their purpose and using it at work. Whereas, and this just tends to be the case, where I feel like a lot of my job is saying, don't generalize about generations. And then I'm about to generalize about generations. So I understand the hypocrisy that I'm about to embark upon, but we're here. Let's go for the ride. So it tends to be that older generations didn't even know that they had permission to talk about purpose, where there was a generational identity that it's called work, so it's supposed to be work. If it was supposed to be fun, it'd be called fun. And so there was that mindset of there's this kind of like sacred and secular divide of what am I allowed to talk about work and not. And a lot of times too, and this isn't just a generational thing, a lot of times we actually find that it comes from a family of origin of what role does work play. Many of us have been raised to say, if you want to find your purpose, find it in your community, find it in your role as a parent. If religion's important to you, maybe you'll find it in your religion or your philanthropy or a community that you can find connection to. And that's important work. But the conversation then comes back to, so what are we doing at work? Are we just biding our time, just trying to find money to take care of those things that are our purpose? What would it look like if both and really did exist? And so that's where the definition of purpose being the best of what you have to help others is so powerful. It's not that when you're at work, you don't have a purpose, and when you're at home with your kids, you do. It's that who you're serving with your purpose is changing. And so that question of who, I think, is very empowering, is once we identify who is our who is it that we're called to help, whether we change jobs or change positions or change cities, who is it that we're called to help, I think is a very, very important question. So I think younger generations have a higher expectation. And instead of saying it's a nice to have, it's a necessary to have. So I think the demand is certainly shifting. And I mean, we've seen that, like Dollywood, for example, is one of our clients. And so, they've got, people who are 14 years old working for them and people in their late 70s and even in their 80s working for them. And so that process of helping every single person, no matter their age or position inside of an organization, find their purpose and feel with 110% conviction that they can live out their purpose while working at that company. What an amazing gift, because I really believe that purpose is the ultimate unifier.
Let's talk about the person that's stuck on the hamster wheel you kind of hinted at earlier, but let's go deeper. So the one that's not just on the hamster wheel, but it feels like, look, I've tried a lot of things. I've tried to change stuff. I've done the courses. I've listened to the stuff. I've gone to the seminars. I've done all the things and just nothing is working and I feel defeated. Talk to that person and let's provide some alignment and motivation there.
Yeah, there's an interesting proverb that talks about how you never enter the same stream twice. And so it might look the same, it might have the same name, you might have even entered at the same location, but the stream is different and so are you. And I think the same is true when it comes to any sort of professional development or personal development journey. Is there are times where, Devin, you've probably picked up books, I've picked up books, and the first time you're like, this isn't helpful. And then you happen to pick it up later and you're like, where has this been my whole life? And so the words aren't different, but you are. And so for those folks who feel like they've tried everything, the challenge is always, if I'm a little cheeky, like really everything. You've tried absolutely everything. But I resonate with that because I felt that way too. For many years, I felt like I'd tried so many things. Like I felt like a kid lost at Costco trying to find my purpose. I was like, I need to go get more degrees. Is that going to give me a purpose? Or, maybe if I get into this relationship or out of this relationship, or I worked in politics for a long time and thought that was my purpose. And I was like, I got to get out of politics. That's got to be my purpose. I worked in nonprofits. I worked in universities. And every single time I tried to change my situational environment, thinking that was somehow going to change what was going on inside. But the challenge is every time you come to a new opportunity, a new relationship, a new business idea, you're still bringing you with you. And so all of us are on this journey and we have the responsibility and this holy duty, I believe, to really become the best version of ourselves by going deep, taking a step back. So ultimately we can take a step up. And so that journey, it may feel like you're on a hamster wheel, but what you don't realize is there's actually a lot of forward momentum happening, even if it's inches, even if it's centimeters. It feels so small, but you're going to wake up one day and it's just like swimming in the ocean and the current just takes you ever so slightly. And you just look up and you're like, I didn't realize how far from shore I've gotten. There are many times in our lives we think that we're doing the same thing over and over again, but we're actually getting a lot further along than we realized that we were.
Love it. Dee asked the question, can this be used in finance as well? Grounding that kind of her industry. She's on the collection side of
Oh,
things.
cool.
So she's in a very interesting world and role. So let's speak to that for a little bit, whatever value you want to talk about there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, I don't know if we can if you want to unmute yourself, can we do that, Devin? Is that okay? Cool. Cause I'd rather have
Dee,
like a
go for it.
conversation, which is awesome. So awesome. So you're in collections, which is amazing. And collect on purpose. Let's go. Cause there's ways that people in your industry do it in a way that is not purposeful and that's probably a key differentiator, maybe even why you do what you do. So tell me more about that.
Let me clarify that. First of all, thank you, and a great conversation. So it's not collections in the consumer side. I'm based in accounts receivable, so business to business and business to government.
Yep.
So a little bit different because when people hear the word collection, they normally get through the heebie-jeebies, and then you've got the people that are aggressive and all the things. That's not my style at all. Mine is more the softer side of AR, and it's the problem solving, the customer service, the relationship building, and the expressing gratitude. That's my framework, which is how I use to collect money for the government and other agencies. I just was fascinated to hear about how I could take that and add the purpose part to it so that I could expand what I do and then teach other business owners how to do it with grace. So thank you for the opportunity.
That's very cool. No, I love that. And I think there's a number of different ways that I can already see you doing that, whether it's from how you're training other business owners is to be able to make sure that they know their purpose and what they're doing is aligned with it. because that is one of my favorite moments, is when people have this aha. Because a lot of times people think purpose discovery means I'm going to change everything I'm doing and I'm going to go eat, pray, love my way through Europe and I'm going to start a nonprofit. And they think that there's going to be work on the other side of it. And I've just done this for so long that more often than not, people actually find alignment in what they're already doing. So if you can help people find out that how what they're already doing is in alignment with their purpose, they're going to work harder, do more, and get better results for themselves and for their clients. I mean, we were working with an eye surgeon about a decade ago, and he came to us and he's like, this isn't my purpose. I want to sell my practice. I want to, move and start a nonprofit and all of those things. But what we helped him identify was what his purpose was and how he solved problems for people. And he shifted saying, the people I'm called to help are out there, and started seeing the people I'm called to help are in here. He's like, what an opportunity that I get to connect with people and not just, help them with their eyesight, but I also to get to help them solve problems in their life that I have a voice into that other people don't necessarily. So that, I think, would be a powerful and profound thing to those folks that you're encouraging, maybe even coaching and consulting to get into this business. First of all, let's make sure that it's aligned with your purpose. So that way you're willing to push through, because as a business owner and in any industry, it is a calling because it is long, hard, and intense depending on the day. So I think that's a big part of it. What we also too see is, and we're just seeing this with a couple of different industries, where they're even providing this as a client acquisition model, where they're saying, we want to be seen as the people who are doing this on purpose. We've got folks in the tech space, in the IT space, who are going to conferences, and because we let people resell our assessment. So they're reselling the assessment underneath their company and actually using it for client acquisition, say, hey, find your purpose, and then talk to us about how we can come in and deliver these IT services, because we're a different type of company. So it could be something like that. But there's probably a couple other things too that I could probably think of ways to integrate it. And even just having like the moniker, I mean, for us, how we empower people, like Dr. Buchanan, who I just talked about, who's our emergency room doctor, certified coach, where she literally has on her white lab coat, I'm a doctor on purpose. And so it's like, tell me more about that. And so she now has an opportunity, because she has a certification behind her too, saying, yeah, I'm actually certified to help people find their purpose. And so it's just a cool conversation to be able to meet people where they're at. Yeah, cool question.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a great.
Very cool. I love it.
What's next for you in the company? Paint the big picture. I know you've dropped some numbers, some hints, but I know you're such a visionary. I'd love for you to share the vision with us.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, we are incredibly passionate about empowering people to create an accessible experience to purpose. And so our mission at the Purpose Company is to democratize purpose worldwide. And so we have a new release of all of our materials, including our certification, coming out in 2026 in Spanish. So all of our materials will be translated into Spanish to be able to expand our network, which I think is going to be absolutely incredible, and empower people in communities that we don't currently have access to. And as I shared now, the assessment is created for 10th grade and up, but in Q1 of 2026, so depending on when people are reviewing this, is we're actually creating a kids version. So we're creating a 13 to 17-year-old version where you'll be able to have your kid, maybe your child or a member of your family, take the assessment. And then there are guided discussions that you can actually have conversations with them about what their purpose is. And we've got some really exciting potential partnerships with school districts and some other pretty big things coming down the line. So we're very, very excited. I think that we knew that we entered the purpose economy post-pandemic, where I think the expectations around conversations around purpose, people are wanting more tangible and less theoretical. And so we're really happy, lucky, and blessed to be able to kind of have been in this space and have been geeking out about purpose for a really long time. That, if we can create data points for people, which is a lot of what we get to do too, is anytime we work with a company and they go through the assessment process, we actually pull data on the back end and can actually talk about what is the status of purpose at this company and what percentage of your employees currently feel like they can live out their purpose, which is usually higher than most people think. Like, some companies are like, don't come in and tell us how bad it is, but it's oftentimes a lot better than you think. And then they turn around and use that for marketing and recruiting. They even say, hey, come find your purpose at our ABC company or wherever it is that they work. So that part of it is pretty cool as well. So we're doing some more corporate projects as well going into the new year of really studying what is the longitudinal effect of finding your purpose? How does it impact your health and wellness, your ability to flourish, your economic mobility, and then your productivity at work?
Love it. So you just talked about using it for marketing, for recruiting. We talked about using it as part of your brand, right, on the lab coat. I love that. What haven't we talked about? What's missing? What's on your heart? What do you need people to hear? What's a nugget we can give them? What else do you have?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would encourage folks in your community, and I'm so thankful to have gotten connected to you and gotten connected to this community, because I think I say all the time, good people know good people, and this is definitely no exception here. But I think that a lot of times people need to be given permission to live out their purpose, to first find it and then use it. I think many times it's so funny. They're washing my windows. That's what's going on out there. So if you guys are like, what is happening? This is how I can tell you guys, this is not a set. I actually live here. There's movement going on. And then my cat is also too chasing the string. So it's a very exciting day here at my house. But what I would encourage them to do is to consider, am I worth it? Because I can talk about the science and the ROI and the importance of finding your purpose, but if you don't feel like you are worthy of pursuit, if you don't feel like finding your purpose is worth your time, or you're not worthy of finding purpose for, you'll never start that journey. And so many times people will say, oh, well, it's too late for me, or, oh, I'm no longer in that season. I've just got to make it to retirement, or I've just got to make it till my kids leave the house. Or we oftentimes put up these arbitrary time frames in our minds, trying to put off really one of the most important things that we can do is really live a purposeful life. And so I just want to encourage them to lean into who are you and who is it that you're called to help. Now I'm talking about this assessment, but it takes 20 minutes, but if I were just to sit across from you having a coffee with you, the number one question I would ask you to help you along this journey, whether you take the assessment or not, is what have you overcome that you can help others overcome? You see, your story is your authority. The things that you've been through have given you unique insights that you and only you can have. And a lot of times people talk about this imposter syndrome kind of thing going on. And I think we actually play it up so much to act like it's a bigger problem than it is. And it's just a syndrome of being new at something. And so if you are in a season where you're like, I'm trying to figure out what's next, I want to be able to walk in with clarity and conviction. Step one is knowing that you're worth it. Step two is determining what have I overcome that I can help others overcome. And then step three is to build conviction. We define conviction as the unreasonable certainty that what you're doing is right and worth it. The unreasonable certainty, because you got to be unreasonable, even to the reasonable certainty. You've got to know with 110% confidence that what you're doing is right. So it has to be rightly aligned with your purpose and worth it, worth the sacrifice. And I think many times when we're talking about purpose, and I get it, I am the CEO of something called the Purpose Company. So I know I'm a little bit biased, but when you talk about purpose, it feels so ethereal. It feels so impractical. It feels like a nice to have, not a necessary to have. But I truly believe that whether you're a parent, you're an employer, you're a manager, you're a leader, that if you just look at the numbers of what some of the mental health crisis that we're in, that is only getting worse with the loneliness epidemic around AI, that we're moving towards a disconnected society despite having all of the access to connection that we have now, that I believe that it's not just our responsibility. I think that it's our duty and our calling to help the people around us, even if you feel like you know your purpose, is to look around you and say, who is not acting with conviction, who is lacking a sense of clear identity, and who does not have confidence and conviction in who they are and who it is that they're supposed to help.
Man, there's a lot to unpack in that. That's probably that rewatch moment or re-listen moment. If you're engaging with this, go back, start that over, go through it. D, I love that you reflected, your story is your authority. And I love that you tie that into imposter syndrome, because that's such a talking point right now, is like, do I deserve this? Do I belong? There's so much of that. And I'm so glad to hear that this empowers that and impacts that as well.
And getting very
The
clear
other,
about what that is too, I think
yeah.
is so special. And the specificity, I think, is one of the things, like that's the doubt killer, is the specificity of what elements of your story you can lean into. Because, you know, Devin, you'll be able, the three of us here would all tell different stories. Like we could all tell the same story, but we'd tell a different story. And people would be hearing from each of us different things because of who we are, where we came, how we present the information. And I think a lot of times we talk ourselves out of giving to others because we are looking to the left and the right saying they're more qualified, not realizing that people are saying, I need you. I've been waiting for you to tell me what it is that I need to do. I mean, you've probably seen this in your life where someone can give you advice, maybe it was a partner or a parent saying you should do this, and you're like, no way. And then someone else comes in and says it, and you're like, what a good idea. And so how can you be the cool uncle or the cool aunt for somebody else and tell them what to do so that they do it?
I say Gary, who's on here but not on here, he's the cool uncle. So that was a great analogy to wrap with. I love the be real. I do want to make sure we sit in that for a second. You know, we saw the cat, we see the window cleaners. Like, I love recording like this because it's so real and authentic. Like, this is not staged. This is just real conversation. And I appreciate you sharing your value with us. What's the best way for people to connect with you? What are some great next steps?
Yeah, so they can check out the Purpose Factor Assessment at purposetest.com. So you can just go to purposetest.com, and it's normally $69 to find your purpose, but right now we're actually doing a $20 off coupon. So depending on when folks are viewing this, so it's only $49 and takes about 20 minutes to get a 49-page report about who you are and who it is that you're called to help. So that's the best way to learn more and just to get into our community. And then of course they can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Gabrielle Bosche. I spend a lot of my time on there, hopefully giving back, teaching. I believe that when you have overcome something, you have a responsibility to be able to share your story with others. And so as a professional speaker, as an author, as someone who's been in this space for a long time, as a coach, consultant, et cetera, I believe in giving back as well. And so you can follow along with my journey as I'm kind of constantly giving tidbits and what I call ninja hacks away. So that way, hopefully I can empower people that once they find their purpose, they actually know how to use it and to use it to step onto that platform on purpose.
That's amazing. We'll make sure we link all of that. So wherever you're watching this, look below, look to the side. Those links will be here so that you can engage with that. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom with our community. Looking forward to doing more together.
Awesome. Thanks.